Hello, Elko Middle School students. Today, as a class, you are going to discuss two very important character traits. Those are perseverance and grit. So many of you already probably have a good idea of what perseverance is or what we mean when we talk about it. But grit is equally or arguably more important. So today, you'll also learn how having grit can really help you to persevere and do well in school, at home, and in your future. So today, you are going to be talking about working hard to overcome obstacles. All right, so what is perseverance? You are going to watch an inspirational video that I think truly demonstrates the heart of perseverance.
I am down and oh my soul so weary. When troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence till you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shore.
Wow, if you teared up at that video, you are not alone. So what is perseverance? Pause this video and discuss as a class what you think perseverance is based on previous knowledge or what you saw in this video. I'm sure you all came up with some great ideas, but perseverance can be doing something despite difficulties or failure. Continued patient effort, or simply never giving up. As a class, pause to discuss the following. How did Derek Redmond show perseverance? Why is perseverance important? And how does it help you? Derek Redmond is a great example of perseverance. You'll notice that he got a standing ovation from over 65,000 people. Those people were not cheering for him because he got first place. They were cheering for him because despite being in overwhelming pain, he continued and finished the race. So why is perseverance important? It's important because it allows you to finish. It allows you to follow through. It allows you to do your best despite all of the challenges that may come your way. Your best may not be the same as someone else's best, but with perseverance, you can truly give your all. It can help you at school, learning new material, doing well in classes. It can help you in sports, excelling in hobbies. It can even help you down the road when you choose a career, persevering, doing the best in whatever job you choose to do. But perseverance isn't perfect. It's not always easy to do. So, what are some challenges that students face in middle school? Think about social challenges, academic challenges. This year in particular, schedule changes. Pause the video to discuss challenges you guys are facing as a middle school. So we know that middle schoolers face challenges. I think that middle school years can be some of the hardest years. It can be hard to navigate friendships. Many of your classes are a lot harder at the intermediate school or at the middle school than they were at the intermediate school. And there's schedule changes. At the middle school, your schedule looks a lot different than it did at the intermediate school. It can make it hard. This year, though, there are even more challenges for students and at the middle school level. So pause the video to discuss what are some new challenges this year that have made the school year more difficult. So we know this year there's online learning. Most of you guys didn't sign up for it, but here you are doing it. Many of you doing it well. Social distancing. You can't just run up and give someone a hug in the hallway like you might have previously. And masks. I know that most of us have adjusted to wearing masks, but man, our faces sure do feel better when we take those masks off. So there are a lot of challenges this year that we really need to persevere through. So now that you've identified some challenges that you are facing this year, think about some of the challenges that you gave in the previous slide. Can you overcome them? Now I want you to pause this video and discuss ways to overcome these common challenges that students face this year, such as online learning, connecting with others you cannot see regularly, maintaining a positive attitude, and masks and social distancing. So I'm sure you came up with some great strategies on your own, but here's some of mine. So for online learning, make sure you stick to a schedule, but also take time for breaks and self-care. When connecting with others, get creative. Can't see them in person? Find a way to connect with them virtually. Maintaining a positive attitude. I always say argue against those negative thoughts in your head. When you hear the negative self-talk start to creep in, reframe or change those thoughts to positive or helpful thoughts. And masks and social distancing. Find a positive or tell yourself it'll eventually be over. For example, for masks, one benefit is that, if your face is breaking out, well, your mask covers it up. No one has to see. Are you frowning because you dislike something? No, no one has to know. So change those negative or positive thoughts, into something more positive. So we've talked about perseverance. Now we're going to shift to talk about grit, which is very much related to perseverance. So Angela Duckworth, the person in this video, she is going to describe why grit is so important to success.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
So grit. Grit is a way that you can more successfully persevere. Grit and growth mindset. So grit. What is grit? Pause this video and discuss what grit is or what grit means to you. So grit is passion and perseverance to meet long-term goals and having stamina. I love the term gritty, getting gritty, which getting gritty can be the same thing as working just ridiculously hard. Okay, next question. What is needed to have grit? So pause this video and discuss what do you think you need to do to be gritty? Some examples you may have come up with are a good work ethic, a positive attitude. Maybe you even said you need perseverance to truly have grit. And finally, pause this video one more time and discuss, how does having a growth mindset help develop grit? So we know that growth mindset is a belief that through hard work, you can get better at anything that you want to get better at, and that you can learn through failure. Failure doesn't mean something permanent. Failure is a stepping stone towards success. So believing that you can succeed through hard work and being okay with failure, that's how growth mindset can help you to develop grit. All right, kids. So do you have grit? What do you think? You might already have an idea in your head as to whether you have grit or you don't have grit. Well, now you're going to get to find out. So you are going to do your own grit scale. So this should take about 5 to 10 minutes to complete. What you're going to do is you're going to go into your Schoology course, class of 2025, 26, or 27, Strategies for Success. Click on the Character Lessons folder, and then click on the folder December Lesson, Perseverance and Grit. And then click on the Grit Scale page and link. This link will take you into a website. You are going to complete the Grit Scale and then screenshot your result and upload it into the Grit Scale assignment on Schoology. Once everyone is finished with their Grit Scale, please move on to the next slide. But for now, please pause the video. All right. Can everyone have grit?
ask yourself this: do you have grit? Some people may say that grit is having the perseverance in the face of adversity, setbacks and failures. It's the combination of those things that create grit. It's about having this stamina quality, not just being passionate, but sustaining that passion for a long time. It's not just about the hours of work you put in, it's about the hardest kind of work. You need to concentrate on the things you don't know, identifying your own weaknesses and working on that. It's about being in a very uncomfortable place, or some part of your day working extremely hard, and then to get up and do it all over again. Grit can be the difference in becoming successful, because you will never give up and never run away when things get tough. This is the power of grit. Do you have it?
All right, so let's take a poll in your classes. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you have grit? If you had a thumbs down, that's okay. Maybe you don't feel like you have grit yet. You can always add yet onto anything that you don't have, because you can always work towards it. You can get gritty to have grit. So make sure that when you're faced with a challenge, that you use strategies that can help you to be successful. So your exit ticket out the door today is to discuss as a class, what can you do personally to have more grit? Have a wonderful day, Elko Middle School, and get gritty.